All right. I want to thank you for taking time out of your schedule today for this Tridium talk. This is a we're going to do these monthly. This is a first for templating, and then we're going to actually do 2 more after this. Not in this necessarily order, but we'll do a templating 101, which we're doing today, and then we'll do a 102 and a 103, or maybe we'll call it 201 or 301. But we'll get more advanced, and I'll explain why we're going to break them up. But our goal with the Tridium talk is to do short little talks within 20-minute time frame, give folks some time to do Q&A, not drag them out. And then what I'll do is I'll do a video that is a little more, it will actually be the same video that you'll see here, but we'll actually put in cues and nice little graphic arrows to point things out, and we'll put that up on our training site or on our YouTube site. So you'll have many different ways if you watch it live, watch it recorded, or watch it through the editing. We'll have multiple ways of taking these topics and getting them to you. So with that, I am joined with Michael Swainston. He is an engineer from upstairs. Oh, upstairs in my relative world is in corporate, but he's in engineering, so he actually works on the templating, so he'll be here to help bail me out of the sticky questions or the hard questions. This is my second Tridium talk ever, so I'm learning as we go here, but we'll go through the presentation that I put together, which is just kind of outlining templates, and then I'll jump right into Workbench and show you how it works. If you have a question, there is a questions tab that you should be able to see. So you just click on that and you'll be able to submit a question. Michael is over there commanding that tab, and he will answer them if they're quick. And if there's something that needs clarification, we will then answer it as a group. And again, upcoming, we'll have a Edge Tools application and provisioning in April. And then in May, we'll have a templating 201 where I'll talk about bulk deploy. What's going to be kind of important, we wanted to introduce you to these Edge tools because it uses templates extensively with the provisioning tool. So you'll get to see how that works. And then in templating 201, we'll kind of get down into the nitty gritty again so we can kind of look at what we saw when we looked at the Edge tools. Okay, so everything's kind of building up on top of each other there. So let's take a look now at templates. All right, so objectives, I want to show you what a template is. What is, define what a template is. We're going to prepare for creating a template. We're going to look at the Workbench tools. I'm going to show you how in a demonstration I created a template for a rooftop unit. We'll deploy that template and we'll take a look at what's going on. Caveat is I'm actually using Niagara 4.7. The only thing that I'll call out in 4.7 is a new type of template, which we'll cover again in the advanced class because it's also related to the Edge, which I'll talk about. But that's the only caveat. So 4.6, 4.4 up, right? That you look at some of the components that I'm using. So what is a template? So a template is a deployable package. When you look at how Niagara is moving, we are moving towards how do you manage multiple types of IoT type of devices, right? Whether it's JACEs, whether it's Edge controllers, you have all of these devices out in the enterprise and you need a way of managing them so that I can make one simple change and then it populates through the network. So a template is one of those components that's is a necessity for managing one of these large buildings or these large campus installs. It is just a container. It's essentially a zip file in disguise. It's a .ntpl. I show you that it's a zip file in disguise so that you can actually go in and look at those files, because there are some folks that have contacted me with old templates that they have that they want us to take a look at what the contents are, and I'll show you that kind of like a deep dive, a bonus. And then we can group these templates to a module so that they're easily to distribute, and then we'll talk about how you deploy them, and that's where a lot of the magic comes in when you start deploying templates on how they manage on a JACE or down into the network. So box it up, deploy it. This is the pre-work. So when I first started to work through templates, I did it ad hoc. So here are some lessons learned on trying to think through what you're trying to template beforehand, because it can get quite messy when you do it ad hoc. So first thing I wanted to do is figure out what I want to template. And why I tell you that is there's actually 4 different things that you can template. You can template a station, which we're all familiar with. It's been there for a while. You go ahead and create a station template with everything that you want in it, including your tag dictionary, your hierarchies, and you make a station template. And then when you go and create a new one, you can apply that template. But that's it. I can only do that once when I create that new station. The next thing that we've added into 4.7 is an application template, and that's a special version of sort of like a station template that allows me to deploy that to a running station. And I'll talk about that a little bit more, but we'll get in depth in the next session. And then components, which we're familiar with, or a device. And so here we're going to do a device. We're going to do that rooftop unit. We need to think through the process of, okay, I want to bring in this and make it look exactly the way I want it to look, including the PX pages, the points, the tags, relations, any screens or logic. So I kind of have to plan through that before I create that template and bundle it all up. So first thing I did was bring in that actual device, bring in points, lay them out. I added weather components to the display of this page. I organized my points into a points folder for that rooftop unit. I brought them into mechanical, display, set points, and diagnostic. And I did that, which I'll show you, mainly because I have 4 different PX pages that I wanted to display in a hierarchy, and I made it easy for myself with those folders, so I could apply that PX page to that folder, and I'll walk through that too. So that's part of the process when you look at creating templates is how do I want to organize these? How do I want my wire sheets to look? Do I want to document them? How do I want to organize these components? Tagging is also really huge. I can't overemphasize this. With analytics now included in the framework, right? Tags are important for the analytics to be able to find your data, or to create a metadata hierarchy of your building or where it is located. So one cool thing about tagging in templates is you can do it once, and then every time you deploy the template, you'll never have to worry about tagging again, right, for those particular devices. So this is a way or a method for you to begin to look at deploying a template out into these buildings or these pieces of equipment, and use the template to tag so it's consistent across all the different buildings and all the different systems that you connect to. So can't say enough. You'll see that I use my own tag dictionary because I'm kind of cheating. I'm using a tag to actually tag to my views, so it's easy for me to build in my hierarchy. And then there are some tags that I couldn't get, and I'll show you why I wanted a tag for like weather, MSG, forecast, right? I'll show you why I want to tie to that. And then I also use haystack tags. So all my analytics are actually running across the haystack tag dictionary, okay? The other thing is think about your hierarchy. So I want to be able to go down into the network and look for a BACnet device, and then I wanted to look for views, and that's my tag view, and you'll see how that will display on the side. So here you'll see I have a building, and then I see all of the devices. So I see the energy meter, the generator, and then this rooftop unit that I'm templating. And then down here is my kind of like a test thing where I make sure I've got all my views incorporated into that hierarchy. So as you think through this, right, when you create a template, think about how you want that to display, and then it makes it very easy for when you deploy those templates that they just fall in the appropriate hierarchies out there, okay? The other thing is design all the PX pages that you want associated with it. So I have several that we're going to bundle up. Here's just an example of 2. So on this slide, I wanted a rooftop unit that kind of gave me a general overview, and then you'll see with the point folders, I have a mechanical one and a diagnostic. I have like a little digital twin of the controller, and all of that will get processed up. So you design them, you test them, test, as I always say, and then we're ready to kind of look at how to create. So before we look at how we create, let's look at some of the tools that are available to us in Workbench. So there are 4 types of stations, as I alluded to, right? There's the entire station, which we're familiar with. There's this new one, application template, which is available in 4.7, which is pretty much designed for the Edge controller. When you buy an Edge controller, the Edge 10 from us, it essentially has an application running on there, and it would be not a good thing if I had to shut that station down to be able to apply a template. So this application template is new for 4.7. It can be used for Edge, and it can also be used for JACE. So it's pretty exciting because this will be the first time I can actually take services and things of that nature and actually apply them to a running station. And I want to do a session on that deeper dive because that will show some impact on how you would deploy templates and so forth. So we'll look at that in another session and then look at how that works with the Edge. And then a device template is I'm applying this, I'm going to actually create it with you, a device template for that rooftop unit, and then we'll look at how I can use components for like my analytic algorithms and things of that nature to create templates for those as well. So those are the 4 types of templates. A application template is special and unique because it's going to work in the a running station. You can actually deploy it in a running station. And then the device template is unique in that we have a tool that helps us match up a physical device with the actual template. And I'll show you that tool and how that works. So essentially, there's a palette. Odds are you run, well, I know for a fact, when you're running newer versions of Niagara, these services are already pre-installed and up and running. If they're not, there's a palette that allows you to grab the template service to drag it in. There's a templating sidebar, which you might not be aware of. You can actually pull that up and that will show you any templates that you have created within that version of Workbench. So templates are stored when I create them, they're stored on that local supervisor or that local Workbench. And then when I deploy them, I'll show you how we actually put the same version of the template out there so that we know what version is running and we can do a comparison. And then of course, if you don't have a JACE running with the current version, or you have the current version and you put a minimal install, you might have to also push down the software manager, push down the actual template service to that device. So software manager, a palette, a sidebar, all of those are components that you'll use to spin up templating on those particular devices. There is a methodology of taking, I've seen people with 700 templates. So is there a way of managing those so we can actually spin them up into a module so you can kind of organize them? The one caveat though I will say is that these are great to deploy to hand off to folks, but when you try to deploy them, these are read-only. So I can't go in and actually edit them and then redeploy or update anything that's within that module. So be cautious of that. They're great for handing, like I said, emailing folks or sending the module out and bundling them up, but they're not really a great idea to do that if you're going to deploy a template, which I'll demonstrate. How do you create a template? Again, the tools are pretty easy. All you have to do is right-click on the config, and it will show you, this is the old way, it will show you how to make a station template, right? That's what we're familiar with today. If I click on anything beneath the config, I would get make template. In 4.7, when you right-click on the config, we actually now give you 3 options. We can make the station template, which we're familiar with, and then we can make this application template. And again, since these application templates can be installed in a running station, we needed a mechanism then to install that template. So we give you those 3 new menus in 4.7. Okay. So when we look at creating a device template, the only thing that's different here from a component template is that I'm actually on a physical device. So here in this example, we're looking at an NRIO network, and then the physical device is an IO16. And so when I make a template, it will know that that is a device template, and I'll show you the special case when we deploy it, how we can align that up to another physical device. And then the component, again, is just showing you I've got a folder within Logic, and I go and create a component template. And I use component templates for my algorithms and analytics, for my tag dictionaries. I drag in those appropriate things. So when I created a station wizard or a station template, this is typically how we see it, right? You create a new station, the wizard gives you the option to pull up that template. So that's the only time you'll see a station template. If I create a device template, there is a mode that when I discover those devices, I can actually put in this development template mode. And what's nice about this is it will allow me to apply a template directly to a discovered device and match it up and do everything. And I'll demonstrate how I do that. So this is a really nice methodology of when you're in the field and you're bringing in the physical devices and applying the templates live. It works real well. Some of you actually create the JASES with all of the templates already in, and then you match them up later once you get on site. So you have several ways of doing that, and I'll demonstrate both. When I do use that template tool, that dev tool, that mode, when I see the physical device discovered, I can click on it, and then I can click on the template, and then when I add it, it does all the matching. So it will apply the template, it will discover the device, it will put it in the database, and then I'm up and running. I don't have to do anything else. If I deploy it by dragging or dropping, or I deploy it without having the physical device, then later on I have to match the device in the system, in the database, to the actual physical device. Now, once you look at having the templates deployed, and this is where it gets really kind of cool. There's a service that runs on these on the JASES now, or within Niagara, that watches over the templates. And what this allows you to do is I could deploy, if I have like a campus, I could deploy a template across all these different buildings with different systems, deploy that template, and then from now on, when I edit the template, I can go and actually update all of those components automatically. I don't have to go and try to figure out writing a script or copying and pasting on what rules I had in there. It will actually automatically help me deploy or redeploy those changes. So this is where, when you look at trying to manage a building and getting consistencies, or a campus, templates really start to give you a major advantage. So I'll show you this and show you how that works, because it's a pretty nice feature when you look at how to manage multiple systems and multiple displays. So before I go into the actual demo, this is for, I'm going to look at the time here, actually, this is just to show you that these are zip files. So it creates these templates into your storage in your Niagara. So in this example, I'm in Niagara 4.6 and it's templates. It's a zip. You can rename it from NTPL to a zip, and then you can actually see the contents. And so the manifest is an XML. The only reason why I call that out is occasionally you'll take an old template and you've created it in a new version, and you know that the template can be deployed in an older version. So these are the actual dependencies, which will come up and say, wait a minute, I don't have anything in there, and you can go and edit those out. So that's the only reason why I bring that up. That's a deep dive thing that you don't have to worry about if you don't want to, but if you're one of these techno people like me, you want to know some of the intricacies, so I give you that. All right, so let's go create a template. So this is live. I've got two JASES running. The blue is where I have a master. So what I've done when I create my templates, I actually have a physical device where I template, and I kind of keep that device separate, because this is where I create all my masters and do all the creation. So here I have a rooftop unit, and I have the controller. I've created the interface. From my last Tridium talk where we talked about responsive design, I've created all these things so they're responsive, so they can be on any device. I've created the wire sheets. I have the mechanical. I did borrow one of our OEM's partners' graphics on the mechanical. I've created a display, a digital twin for the display. I have set points. So I've done all the work to make this look the way I want it to look. And then I've also created an analytic component to this, which does fault detection and diagnostics. So this station is pretty complicated. This device has a lot of components that allow me to track down when I create a belt failure, right? It will go give me the mechanical component of where that is. So Niagara Analytics, which we'll do another Tridium talk on, is a pretty cool thing. So, all right, with that, how do I create a template? I'm going to go ahead and right click on that device, and I'm going to say make a template. It is going to go and look at all of the resources that I use for that device, and it's going to bring them all together into the template manager. Here's where I can RTU template, and I might put that it's a particular manufacturer's template because I might have multiple RTU types. We'll get into state. This is showing me all of the components that it went and gathered. Configuration, this allows you that when you run a template, it's going to take the defaults that are already there. If you want to do any kind of overrides when you deploy the template, you would use this configuration tab to do that. So I have essentially a string tag. I'm going to have it stop the template deployment and ask me what I want this value to be. So enter something in here. Okay, so now as I deploy that, as we'll see, it will stop and ask me what I want there, okay? If you have any relations that you want set up, you would make sure that they are here. IO, anything that is, if you look at my rooftop unit, any point or any information below that RT unit that needs information that is outside of that device, you need to put in an IO component. I need to tell the template when it's being deployed where to find that information, where I want to link it in. So I have a essentially a Boolean to say that the building has power, because in my analytics, I don't want to do an alert for one of the fan units failing, having a power failure if the building doesn't have power. So you get the idea. So I need to find that. I have a tag on there. So you'll look down there to the blind hints, which I'll show you, but the user tip is what am I looking for? This is building power from energy meter. That is a hint that when that point comes up and says, have I found the right point, or I have a choice of points, it's going to give me that user hint. The other thing that's really neat is this target slot hint. I'm going to tell it where I want it to go. If you don't, I would have to actually choose it. But if you have a hint, it will automatically wire that up into that priority intent. And then you'll see that it already did some work for me when I built the template and said, well, the point you were trying to connect to is actually tagged, and it pulls those tags for me. So I didn't have to add any blind hints or any searches. It would automatically do that for me. So here I'm just going to real quickly go in for the user tip. This is high, low, and I'm going to do it shorthand so we can watch the time. Here's a forecast. Actually, I want to go in and do in. So the in slot is 10. Go in, here's the forecast. I'm just going to do in 10, make it easy so that I can just click OK for each of these. In 10, and put a thing here. This one I want to make sure I'm clear on what that is, and we'll say that's also going in 10, and then I want to say that that user hint is a occupancy schedule. Okay, so this screen helps you figure out how to find the points that are outside that. The other thing this thing does, that templates does real well, is it bundles all of your PX pages and all the images and everything. So you don't have to worry about getting all those images. They're all done automatically. And then it allows you to go in here to look at those different PX pages. Okay, so and then subtemplates we'll get into in one of the other sessions, but this allows you to apply a template within a template. And there's some neat things you can do with analytics with subtemplates, and we'll get into more detail. So I'm ready to go. I'm going to save it. It's going to now create that template file for me. So if I go down to my template palette, it's there. I'm going to unplug the device and put that device into another JACE that doesn't know it's there. And we're going to switch over and I'm going to apply that template. So I'm going to go over here to the second JACE. And we're going to look at the BACnet driver, and we're going to see that I've already applied some templates. I already put the building generator in, and I have the energy meter all wired up. So I'm going to go over here to the BACnet network. I'm going to hit Discover, and it will go out and look onto that BACnet network for those controllers. It will find my rooftop controller. And I'm going to use that tool that I talked about, right, which is that dev mode, so that I select the actual device, and then I select the template I want to apply and say add, and it will do all of the magic for me. It will add it, it will match it, it will put it in the database, and it will be live. It will be all up and running. So as it's transferring all of those components from the template, it's putting them in a couple places. It's storing a copy of the template on the device. Now, here is that I/O tab. So it said, all right, I need to find the building power. It only found one point that was tagged correctly, so it automatically selected it, and it's not asking me where I want to plug it into because I gave it a hint. So all I have to do is say, yep, that's it. Yep, that's the weather service. That's the forecast. Yep, that's the outside temp. Yep, and here's the schedule because it found two. And I select that, and now I've deployed that template. It stops. Remember, I said that we need to fill in, this could be set points. So I made this. And now I've set that point inside that RTU, and it's ready to go. So now I have a physical device connected to that JACE that has my entire template. Now I have points or tags that are applied. So I'm going to go over here and go into my services, right? Oops, services, and refresh my analytic cache. And then we'll take a look at, here's my hierarchy. Come down here to hierarchy, and we have buildings, and then you'll see my rooftop unit. Boom, we're ready to go. So you notice all my analytics are now going green because I refreshed the cache. So this device is up and running using one of those device templates for that rooftop unit. Okay, if I go down to let's say, a location and they have 4 rooftop units and only one is connected, I can still go in and add this template to the existing JACE and then match the devices later. So that's another way you can do that. So I can go and drag this rooftop unit up here, call it rooftop 2, and then it will fire off the template and do the same thing. But this time I'm not going to have a match. So I'll have a rooftop unit that's in default. And then I can match it to a physical device later, but it asks me the same thing. So can you see the power of a template on a device? It does all that work for you and makes it very easy to deploy. And then one last thing I'll do before, and I'm running a little late, is open it up for some Q&A, but let me show you now the power of the templating service. So I've deployed that template. Oops, that's my tag. And so the templating service keeps track of that RTU 1 and 2 is using this template called RTU 1, and that it's up to date. But if I go and let's say in my enterprise, I forgot to do something. So one of the things when you look at this, I didn't label what this occupied block was. So if I wanted to come in here, I can now edit my template, go into the graphics component and say, yep, I forgot to add a graphic or a title to what this block is. And I'll just say that this is arc status. And now I have that title. I go ahead and save. Now, one of the things that you do is if I've changed it, I'm in draft to test it. I need to actually say it's ready. And when you say it's ready, you actually increase the version number. It's now ready. It has that change, and I hit save. Now, when I go down to that JACE or my supervisor and I look at any of the templates that are out there, so we go back to our template service, we immediately get that, hey, those 2 RTUs, those units, have an out-of-date template. And so I have a really nice feature that says update all out-of-date files. I can say commit, and it will go now and automatically, I could have 20 of those suckers. Boom, boom, boom. It will go out and automatically update each one of those templates, and I made one change, and then use the system and the management, the template service to manage the rest of them. And then it will come back up and say I've applied those templates. And you can also, if somebody's modified it, because I get that question a lot, if I deploy a template and then somebody local modifies it, I will actually get a notification that there is a change that I'm about to wipe out, because you can actually say, hey, redeploy that and overwrite what they did, because I don't want that to be there, right? And so now when we look at this, we have the change, okay? And then the analytics will take over from there. So with that, that was like opening a fire hydrant and asking you to take a drink. So let's see what kind of questions we have. Okay, switch glasses here. All right, so when I use to be able to link a schedule directly. So yes, so there, and I think you're looking at 4.7. So Jeff, we talked yesterday. So I did some research. I did find that we are aware of that. I have a build that you noticed that I used that it worked correctly in. So that is a bug. And we have that. Otherwise, if you have something that's urgent, you can put a control point on that schedule and link that in. But that is something that we are aware of. Let's see. When you add a BACnet device, will it write the device ID to the controller when it is being added? So if you noticed, when I actually created when I deployed the template, I used that dev tool, and it automatically did all that work for me. So I never had to enter that in or match it. It just happened in the discovery process. So I like to leverage that dev mode because of I don't have to go back and rematch any of my devices. Okay. When deploying a device template containing several points, is it necessary for the deployment to prompt for every individual target point binding? Or is there some way of binding the whole device to the root? So it will never stop to ask unless you put it in the config, right? So if you look at my template and we look at this configuration, anything listed here is where it's going to stop and ask me. If it's not in this list, it will take what it has already in its settings, its fallback settings. So you can actually go create defaults and then never ask again. That's why I didn't put my set points in here, because when I deploy the template, I wanted my set points to be what I have them configured to be, and not give the template installer the ability to go in and override those. If I did, I would go into the points, we go into the set points here, and then I would list out what I want the fallback to be. Now it would stop and ask me what value I want. It gave me a value of 73 as default, but it would let me override that. So good question. We have multiple texts that want everyone working with the same template. Yes. Can a template be shared on a common drive, such as a network drive, Dropbox, or Google Drive? It sure can. The tricky thing is you would have to kind of map in where you want those to go. So when you look at, my drive, I go here, my templates are in my user store, right? So I either have to, can you change a pointer to where the templates are stored? I don't think you can. Yeah, I don't think, I have to think of that. I don't think you can, but when you look at this, this is in my user store. On my personal Windows machine, I'm able to remap some of these. It's kind of trickery. It's kind of creating an alias that points to a different location, but these templates are stored in that local drive. So I'd have to remap essentially this path for each of those users to like a Dropbox or a OneDrive. Which you can. I'll try to see if I can't write something up on that, because the latest version of Windows actually showed me how I could do that with Dropbox. So that's actually a pretty challenging, good question. These are all good questions. Let's see, thanks for this. All PX files and image files of the template, are they going to be saved? Yes, so I didn't show that, so that's a great question. So what happens when I deploy this, all of the files, there's several things that happens. First of all, the PX pages are actually inside a folder called deploy. So here are the rooftop images and PX pages, and then the images are thrown in the image folder, and then the PX pages are down here. And then the other thing we do is we actually make a duplicate copy of the template for reference. So if you get find a template that's been orphaned and you don't have the master, you can actually pull it off a device, and then you have that template file to edit to figure out what it was and how to use it. So those are that was a great question on where that would be. Oops. All right. Let's see. Thanks that we already did that. Could you explain a little more about not being able to edit a template deployed from a module? Yes. So modules, it's taking the NTPL file and it's just wrapping it up into a jar, right? So once it's in that jar, it's just read only. So that's essentially the limitation there. It's more for sending them out, and then you can you know, deploy them through that. But if you're going to deploy them as an enterprise where the template service is managing, you don't want to use that mod or that jar. All right, I understand templating on Edge controller, but this also applies to vendor-specific devices like Honeywell Spiders. That is a great question, and I don't have an answer to that. So I will have to take that offline. Can we take note of that one? Let's see. What's the best workflow to edit a template you don't have on your laptop? If multiple texts, so this goes back to that same question, can I have them in a same store? So the workflow is, you know, if you have a supervisor and you start there and you store all of them on the supervisor, there's your one storage place, right? And just connect to the supervisor. And that depends on if you remote in or whether you're using Workbench to connect to that supervisor. So remember, they're local. So either store them on a server and figure out how an alias, right, to map them on each of the local machines, or you put them on a place on a server and you check them in and out. So I could copy them into my local templates folder, do the edits, and then move them back. But keep in mind, the only way the services understands there's a new template is when it talks to the particular Workbench that's doing the communicating to, so it has a way of looking at here's version 1 and here's version 1.2. Okay. So we'll answer a few more. One more question? All right, one more question. Are you going to give me that one more question, or do I get to choose? Oh, okay. Let's see. So the question is there only one point available to bind when applying a template? Is it possible to happen automatically and the dialog appear? So this, when you watched, where's my mouse go? When you watch me deploy the template, it goes out and looks at these hints, right? So if we come over here to the IO, I'm looking for this hint. So this is actually going out and saying, find the tag MT schedule, and then it will list any of the points that I'm trying to connect to in that window. If I only have one and I have a target slot hint, it would automatically apply and say, yep, I found the one, and it automatically put the X and it went. If you notice when I deployed this one, I had 2 schedule points. So I got to choose the 2 schedule points. If there were 10 schedules out there and they were all tagged appropriately, I would be able to see all 10, and then I can choose which one, because that might be that I have a rooftop schedule already in place that I want to tag to that schedule. So when you do these blind hints, it will go out and find as many as it can find with that particular tag, list them for you. If there's only one, it kind of does all the stuff for you, put the X to select it, align the in slot, and did it automatically. Now, in the next templating class, I will actually show you how you can take all of these IO components and put them in a spreadsheet and do bulk deploy, where it will never ask you It will never stop the deployment of the template. It will actually get all the answers from the spreadsheet. Okay, and that's a 4.6 thing, and that one's really cool. If you wanted to play with this prior to the 201 class, you click on your template and you say export configs, and it will allow you to create a spreadsheet. And then once you have that spreadsheet, which is now in my, I do believe I just stored in my templates folder. And see, I'm doing this on the fly. So users, me, and 4.7, this, and we go down in my templates, and there's this Excel spreadsheet. So this is like a preview of the next one. We go over here, and you'll see that those inputs are now listed in the columns with the device hints, but it's all in a spreadsheet. So I can list all this stuff out in a spreadsheet, including naming the devices and where these are going to be installed. And what's nice about this is I could have, let's say I have 4 rooftop units and I know the names and I know everything ahead of time. I can go and put all those configs in the spreadsheet, and then when I get on site, I could do a bulk deploy from the spreadsheet, and it just goes and configures each of those rooftop units. So this is also another very powerful component. So thank you very much. I want to again thank you for coming to the TridiumTalk. This ran a little long. I got a little excited on what I was showing. So we're trying to make these about a half hour, but there's a lot to show. I will break this down into, again, a video. You'll have access to the recording, but again, thank you for attending the Tridium Talk. Please fill out the survey and the poll, because we want to see how this platform delivered, which was Zoom, and what else do we have in the poll? Oh, yes. And so, yes, I'll be able to take the rest of the Q&A questions that weren't answered live and be able to answer those and submit those back. So again, thank you for coming. We know that you're very busy folks, so thank you for taking that time out of the day to join this Tridium Talk on Templating 101. And I know how radio folks